I'm Captain Travis Miller, 35 years old, and I've spent the last decade serving in the United States Army, navigating the demands of leadership and the precision required to keep a military unit functioning smoothly. Every day begins before the sun rises, moving through a rhythm of early morning drills, briefings, and reviewing operational reports that determine the readiness of my team and the success of our missions. The base itself is a world of structure and order, with strict schedules, hierarchy, and constant accountability, where every decision can ripple across the lives of the soldiers under my command. Amid this environment, I've grown accustomed to discipline and focus, trusting experience and training to guide me through challenges. That balance was disrupted the day Jake Morrison arrived, the two-year-old son of my commanding officer, who carried a sense of entitlement that seemed as polished as his designer jacket and just as hollow in substance. Jake had never earned his place in the chain of command, but the influence of his father opened doors that should have been sealed to inexperience. He breezed through the hallways with a confidence that felt unearned, asking questions he had no right to and expecting answers that only those who have truly worked for them could give. I watched him from my desk, observing the way his eyes scanned the operations room without understanding the complexity behind each decision. It was clear that he relied entirely on his family name rather than knowledge, skill, or leadership, yet he acted as if he had authority over seasoned officers. For a moment, I reminded myself that this was the normal rhythm of the base. New personnel come and go, some overconfident, others eager to learn, and some completely oblivious to the weight of responsibility. My responsibilities were straightforward but unforgiving: ensuring the unit functioned effectively, preparing reports for upper command, and maintaining morale and readiness at all times. In contrast, Jake's presence introduced unpredictability and tension, a variable I had not anticipated in the otherwise steady environment of the base. His reputation for arrogance preceded him, and I had already heard murmurs from colleagues warning that he was difficult, impulsive, and prone to making situations about himself. Even as I focused on operational details, I could feel the undercurrent of disruption he brought with him, a reminder that authority in the military is not just about rank but about earned respect. I prepared for the day as I always did, reviewing schedules, personnel reports, and mission briefings, all while quietly assessing how Jake's interference might unfold. The office hummed with the usual activity of a military base awakening: phones ringing, radios crackling, and junior officers rushing between tasks. Everything was orderly on the surface, yet beneath that calm, I sensed that the coming hours would challenge not just my patience but my judgment and my ability to maintain control in an environment suddenly infused with entitlement rather than competence. My focus had always been on discipline, preparedness, and fairness, but Jake's arrival threatened to test all three. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that no matter how disruptive, experience and strategic thinking would be my greatest tools in navigating the day ahead. Jake stormed into the operations room without warning, his presence immediately demanding attention as if the entire chain of command bent to his will. He barked out orders that made no sense, instructing soldiers to rearrange schedules and reassign personnel in ways that violated standard procedures, expecting compliance simply because of his last name. I stayed seated, my posture steady, and met his gaze calmly, knowing that reacting with anger would only escalate the situation. He leaned in, his voice sharp and entitled, insisting that a critical training exercise be delayed and that I personally override long-established protocols. Around us, colleagues shifted uncomfortably, whispering and exchanging uneasy glances, the tension palpable in the room as they watched the confrontation unfold. I could sense their frustration and fear, but I held my ground, asserting that my decisions were based on experience and knowledge earned over years of service, not inherited privilege. Jake's eyes widened slightly with disbelief, as if he couldn't comprehend why I wouldn't immediately comply, and he threatened to take the issue straight to his father, the commanding officer. I responded evenly, explaining that bypassing protocol could jeopardize both the mission and the safety of the unit, emphasizing that authority must be earned, not handed down. The room grew quieter, the weight of the confrontation sinking in for everyone present, As it became clear, this was not a simple clash of wills but a test of merit versus nepotism. His face flushed with frustration, yet he tried to maintain a facade of control, pacing briefly before asserting again that his status allowed him to dictate orders. I didn't flinch or respond to his arrogance with hostility. Instead, I calmly reiterated the procedures and the reasoning behind each decision, demonstrating the depth of my experience. The juxtaposition between his youthful entitlement and my measured, practiced authority created a charged atmosphere that left colleagues silently acknowledging who truly understood the stakes. As Jake finally paused, momentarily thrown off balance by my composure, the room held its collective breath, sensing that this confrontation would not end quickly. I continued to explain the risks of ignoring protocol, highlighting past experiences where shortcuts led to failure or compromise, subtly reminding everyone that expertise comes from knowledge and proven judgment. He finally turned on his heel and left with a stormy glare. But the impression was clear, the battle lines were drawn, and merit would not be so easily overridden by privilege. In the aftermath, whispers circulated among the team, some expressing relief that reason had prevailed, others shaken by the audacity of Jake's intrusion into the chain of command. I returned to my work, outwardly calm, inwardly calculating the best way to protect the unit and ensure that such attempts to misuse authority would not succeed. The tension lingered in the air, a reminder that nepotism and entitlement could disrupt even the most disciplined environment, but also that steady experience and quiet strength could hold the line against it. By the end of the encounter, the theme of the day was unmistakable. In a world where power could be inherited, true authority comes from knowledge, skill, and the courage to stand firm. My colleagues slowly resumed their tasks, glances occasionally flicking toward Jake's office, a silent acknowledgement of the challenge that had just unfolded. I took a moment to breathe, understanding that this was only the beginning of a conflict that would test not only my leadership but my ability to navigate the dangerous intersection of family influence and professional responsibility. Over the next few weeks, Jake's interference escalated in subtle but damaging ways, issuing orders that contradicted established protocols and quietly excluding me from key operational decisions. I noticed deadlines slipping, team members receiving conflicting instructions, and critical reports being ignored or altered without explanation, a pattern that threatened the unit's effectiveness. Every instance of sabotage was a calculated move on his part, testing boundaries and hoping to destabilize my authority while appearing untouchable because of his father's influence. I knew that reacting impulsively would only play into his game, so I began meticulously documenting each misstep, saving emails, keeping logs of directives, and recording inconsistencies in reports that revealed his incompetence and reckless judgment. My desk became a repository of evidence, a growing trail of misconduct that would be impossible to dismiss once fully compiled. Each piece of documentation was cataloged carefully, knowing that timing and presentation would be critical in confronting both Jake and the command structure that had temporarily enabled him. To strengthen the case, I enlisted the help of Denise, our compliance officer, whose attention to detail was unmatched, and Alan, a legal advisor known for his methodical and precise approach. Together, we reviewed contracts, orders, and communications, identifying patterns of negligence and unauthorized decision-making that could constitute serious breaches of protocol. The collaboration was discreet, conducted during late hours or in private offices to avoid raising suspicion, but it steadily built a picture of Jake's disregard for rules and the potential consequences of leaving him unchecked. The tension within the office grew, each day punctuated by Jake's presence and unpredictable demands, forcing me to balance outward calm with inward focus on the growing pile of evidence. Soldiers and staff quietly whispered about his audacity, their unease adding to the pressure, yet I remained composed, knowing that exposure rather than confrontation would ultimately be the key to restoring order. The more I observed, the clearer it became that Jake's sense of entitlement was not just arrogance but a dangerous combination of inexperience and unchecked privilege that could jeopardize the unit if left unchallenged. I began tracking every action meticulously, noting the time, context, and potential impact of each improper order or manipulated report. Emails demanding immediate changes, directives contradicting previous commands, and threats to junior officers were all carefully logged. I even documented occasions where he instructed staff to fudge numbers or bypass oversight, actions that directly threatened operational integrity and morale. Each night, I reviewed the growing stack of records with Denise and Alan, discussing strategy and ensuring that nothing could be misinterpreted or dismissed. We cross-checked every email against procedures, every verbal order against the chain of command, and every incident against the military regulations that governed our operations. The methodical work was exhausting, but the precision gave me a sense of control in an otherwise chaotic environment, a shield against the unpredictability of Jake's actions. By mid-month, the pattern of sabotage had become undeniable, and our documentation had transformed into a comprehensive dossier that could withstand scrutiny from superiors and legal advisors alike. I rehearsed potential scenarios, anticipating questions, objections, and denials, preparing to present the evidence calmly and persuasively. Every step was calculated to protect the team, maintain operational stability, and ensure that when the time came, justice would be clear and unassailable. The undercurrent of tension was constant, but my focus never wavered. Each carefully recorded incident was a building block for the confrontation to come. I knew patience was crucial, that rushing or acting without certainty could undo months of preparation and put the unit at risk. Quiet determination became my companion as I watched Jake continue his reckless behavior, knowing that every careless move he made strengthened the foundation of the case I was constructing. By the end of this period, the unit functioned under an uneasy surface calm, while behind the scenes, a meticulous record of misconduct awaited the moment it would be revealed. Each document, each report, each corroborated testimony was another piece of leverage that could not be ignored. I felt a growing confidence, a sense that strategy and preparation, rather than anger or confrontation, would be the force that finally restored order and held Jake accountable for the chaos he had sown. I arrived at the commanding officer's office with the dossier in hand, every step deliberate, knowing that the evidence I carried could not be ignored or dismissed. I placed the folder on his desk and calmly explained that it contained documented instances of Jake's repeated misconduct, unauthorized orders, and actions that endangered both operations and personnel. His eyes flicked from the folder to me, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, as he hesitated before opening the first pages. As he scanned the emails, reports, and logs, his expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, each page revealing another layer of negligence and recklessness. He paused on incidents where Jake had bypassed proper procedure, altered critical reports, and issued orders that contradicted established protocol, his face pale and tense. The realization was undeniable. The consequences of leaving Jake unchecked were clear, and the room seemed to shrink under the weight of the truth. I watched him closely, maintaining a steady gaze, letting the evidence speak louder than any argument could. His hands trembled slightly as he flipped through the final pages, and I could sense the internal conflict as a father and as a commanding officer. The balance of power had shifted subtly but significantly, with the truth establishing a foundation that no amount of familial influence could overturn. He finally looked up, his voice low and measured, acknowledging the severity of the situation, the long silence between us thick with tension. For the first time, it was clear that Jake's actions had consequences beyond personal entitlement, and that accountability would be required. The room felt charged, a turning point had arrived, and I could see that the next steps would set the stage for resolution, with authority and responsibility now firmly grounded in facts rather than influence. In that moment, a quiet satisfaction settled over me, not from revenge, but from knowing that preparation, patience, and meticulous documentation had brought clarity to a chaotic situation. I felt the weight of months of careful work crystallize into a moment of undeniable truth, and I knew that the next phase would determine not just Jake's fate, but the integrity of the entire unit. The tension lingered, but it was no longer solely about confrontation. It was about accountability, justice, and restoring order. Within days of presenting the evidence, the decision came down. Jake was removed from any position of authority, his influence within the unit effectively neutralized. My allies, Denise and Alan, had played a critical role in ensuring the process was thorough and transparent, and their support gave me confidence that justice would be served without compromise. The office, once tense and uncertain, slowly regained a sense of order, as soldiers and staff realized that the chain of command and operational integrity were intact once more. I felt a quiet pride as I resumed responsibilities fully, knowing that my commitment to principles and careful preparation had protected the team from further disruption. The lesson was clear to everyone. Competence and integrity were what truly sustained authority, not family ties or entitlement. My team responded with renewed focus and trust, reassured that their work and dedication were valued and safeguarded, and the morale that had been strained began to recover steadily. Jake's departure left a void that was filled not by vengeance but by structure and fairness, as proper leadership and accountability took root. I maintained a steady hand, ensuring that every decision moving forward reinforced the standards we had fought to uphold, emphasizing respect, skill, and responsibility over privilege. By the end of the week, the atmosphere had transformed, relief and confidence settling over the unit, a testament to the power of preparation, integrity, and unwavering dedication to duty. For the first time in weeks, the office felt stable and predictable, and I could observe the subtle ways in which the team thrived once the disruptive presence was gone. There was a deep satisfaction in knowing that authority had been reclaimed responsibly, without drama, and with the support of those who understood the importance of structure and fairness. The confrontation had ended, not with chaos, but with order restored, lessons learned, and the moral high ground firmly in place, leaving everyone with a clear understanding that respect and competence are earned, not inherited. Looking back on the entire experience, I realized that the challenge was never just about dealing with Jake or his reckless behavior. It was about standing firm in my principles and protecting the integrity of the unit. Preparation and patience proved invaluable, turning what seemed like a vulnerable position into one of strength and clarity. I learned that leadership is not measured by titles or authority inherited from family, but by the ability to make sound decisions, uphold standards, and inspire trust among those you lead. Throughout the ordeal, I relied on careful observation, documentation, and collaboration with trusted allies, reinforcing the lesson that no leader can succeed alone. Integrity became my compass, guiding every choice and ensuring that actions were aligned with both ethical standards and the well-being of the team. In doing so, I earned not only respect but a renewed sense of authority rooted in competence and fairness rather than fear or favoritism. The experience also reminded me that setbacks and challenges often reveal character and offer opportunities to grow stronger and wiser. By remaining composed, strategic, and principled, I was able to transform a potentially destructive situation into a reaffirmation of values and leadership. The trust and confidence of my team deepened, morale improved, and a culture of accountability and fairness began to take hold. Ultimately, the story is about more than winning against an entitled opponent. It is about the power of integrity, preparation, and resilience. Standing firm in the face of injustice, protecting those who rely on you, and leading with ethical conviction are what define true leadership. For anyone facing a similar challenge, the lesson is clear. Focus on what you can control, act with principle, and trust that dedication and careful planning will create the path to justice and lasting respect. Even when confronted with unfairness or privilege, maintaining your values and executing with precision will allow you to navigate the most difficult situations successfully. The satisfaction comes not from defeating an opponent, but from knowing that your actions strengthened the unit, supported your team, and upheld the standards that truly matter. In the end, leadership is earned through character, consistency, and courage, and those who remain steadfast in these qualities will leave a lasting impact that cannot be undermined by temporary power or entitlement.